I went to a UFC fight, and it was a champion who was 14-1 about a year ago. You would know the names. 14-1, and the only guy he lost to was this one guy, but the guy that he was fighting was like almost just an average fighter. Lost numerous times, but he beat this one guy. So I said, okay.
I really don't know who you're talking about.
I will figure it out.
Okay.
But about a year ago, but the point is that he lost. He wasn't nearly the fighter as the one, but the one who was not nearly the fighter had beaten. He's the only guy that beat the champ like 5 years before. And I said, I'll take the guy that won the other fight. And that's what happened. He beat him a second time.
Who are you talking about? Seriously, who in the are you talking about? Hey, what's up, Fight Freaks? I'm the Combat Remix and 80% of all MMA's bad takes. If you're like me, and God help you if you are, then you're playing detective trying to figure out who Trump was referring to. I looked into it, and I think I figured out who it is, or at the very least, the couple of fighters it could be. So let's get to it. So let's run through the weight classes real quick, and right off the bat, we know it's not John Jones at heavyweight. And it's a no-go for Francis Ngannou as well. Well, not impossible, it's him. This one's a stretch, but maybe he's flipping the winner of Francis versus Cyril Gane. I know quite a few people thought Gane won the fight, and of course there was the footage from years back of the two sparring, and Gane was getting the better of the exchanges. And again, this is a stretch, and I ultimately don't think Trump is talking about Francis. Now, taking a look at light heavyweight, and I don't think this is what we're looking for, even if we go back a little further than the time frame Trump gave, it doesn't seem to apply to this division. Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, Yuri Porkrajec, Jamal Hill, and Alex Pereira, none of these seem to meet the conditions. However, speaking of Alex Pereira, he might be involved at the next weight class. Taking a look at middleweight now, Sean Strickland and DDP don't fit the requirements, but Israel Adesanya might play the part. A dominant champ, undefeated for years, but lost to a fighter who had beaten him 5 or so years ago, which is exactly when Pereira last beat Adesanya. And yes, that was in kickboxing and not MMA, but I'm almost positive that Trump isn't remember all these stats and details surrounding the fight perfectly. So this will give us a little wiggle room, starting with the 14-1 record Trump mentions. Going into his fight against Pereira at UFC 281, Izzy had an MMA record of 23-1. However, he had a UFC record of 12-1, which is pretty damn close to what Trump said. But still, it's not impossible that Trump was referring to a different fight, so let's shelf this example and look at some other possible contenders. So now we go to welterweight, and the only way this could be referring to Kamaru Usman or Leon Edwards is if Trump is just way off on how certain fights played out. Hypothetically, he might have picked Leon Edwards to dethrone Usman, simply because Trump was thinking that Edwards had won their first fight from 6 or 7 years prior, completely forgetting that it was actually Usman that won the decision. Now, I know this sounds like a stretch, but going into the Edwards rematch, Usman was 15-0. Naturally, if you mistake Edwards for winning the first fight, you'd think Usman was 14-1. Wait, I'm not even done, because even if Trump is mixing up all the stats like we think he is, Edwards also had a similar record going into the rematch, specifically 13-2-1 no contest. Now, because Edwards was clearly winning his no contest bout before the official call was made, one might mistake his record for being 14-2 at the time. Okay, now you can play the music. And this is a perfect segue to the next possible example, because what if Edwards in his no contest bout with Bilal Muhammad was mistakenly seen as a loss via disqualification? Well, that would mean that the rematch between the two could be a possible contender. However, that fight was way too recent for me to believe that Trump was referring to it, but nonetheless, we move on to the lightweight division. But this one has nothing for us. Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira, or Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yeah, there's not a damn thing to even speculate. And it's the same for the featherweight and bantamweight divisions. But what about flyweight? Well, everyone, this is where I think we find our best and most accurate contender for who Trump was referring to. Here it is, Fight Freaks. I'm almost positive Trump was referring to the title fight between Brandon Moreno and Alexander Pantoja. Let's take a look at the details. This one checks a lot of boxes. For starters, this title fight did happen about a year or a year and a half ago, with their first fight taking place 5 years prior. Furthermore, going into the rematch, Moreno had 14 fights in the UFC and had only lost once since the loss to Pantoja. Before winning the belt, Pantoja had lost 3 times in the UFC, 2 of which were after defeating Moreno in the first fight. And while these stats don't line up perfectly with Trump's description, I gotta say it's pretty damn close. Certainly close enough for me to consider this a solved issue. Thanks to all my Fight Freaks for watching, and a big thanks to my live studio audience. Remix is signing out, but I'll return to bring everyone your MMA fix.
Helene here at Planet 13, being joined by the one and only, the fan favorite, the beloved, the people's champ, Brandon Moreno. Always great to see you, and especially with that huge smile on your face.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to talk with you again.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, let's go, Brandon.
That was kind of crazy, but it was nice. I enjoyed it for sure.
It was a champion who was 14-1 about a year ago. You would know the names. 14-1, and the only guy he lost to was this one guy, but the guy that he was fighting was like almost just an average fighter. Lost numerous times, but he beat this one guy.
Trump didn't know any of the names of the fighters,
No,
which
didn't.
was funny too. He's like, that was a good one. I remember I was there for
He
that.
was the
You were there for
bad
that."
boy of karate.
And it was like he lost to that black guy, and he's like, it's John Jones.
He
His name's John Jones.
thinks Mike Barnes is a UFC fighter.
Karate's bad boy, Mike Barnes. I'd like to see him in the cage, Joe. Can we set it up? Max Holloway or maybe Sean Strickland versus Mike Barnes, Karate's bad boy.
You imagine Sean Strickland fighting karate? He would murder him.
I'm going to kill this fucking guy. You guys ready for this? This weekend, I'm going to fucking murder this queer dude.
My wife still doesn't know that I voted for you.
When I saw this video, great video by Remix of the MMA Fix YouTube channel.
100%. He's great.
Yeah, probably my favorite YouTube channel. Funny guy his joke clips are the best.
I definitely want to
But-
get him on the podcast.
You do that for sure. And then after that, I'll invite him to the White House, maybe even make him a member of my cabinet.